at least it says to the medical schools, you've got this idea and an understanding of the importance of pouring yourself into the community around you. Well, hello, Gage. How are you today?
I'm doing quite well. How are you, Scott?
I'm doing well. Welcome to Am I Ready? And we are going to examine you and your readiness for applying to medical school. Does that sound good?
Oh boy.
Now tell us a little bit where you're calling from, Gage.
Calling from Northern Florida.
Northern Florida. I think you mentioned Jacksonville area, right?
It is an area. It's sad to say.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, Seattle has crushed all of our dreams for the playoffs.
Right. Oh,
Trevor Lawrence. He's sad.
Yeah, I understand. Well, luckily that's just football. We're talking about more important things here, right?
Absolutely.
In terms of the plan and how things look. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to take a look at your mapped account, and I'm going to look at all the elements of what you're doing and what you've done. And I'll ask a lot of questions, and I'll get input from you in terms of explanation of what we're seeing in mapped. And then I'll make some give you some feedback and make some judgments about how I think things look. And so now let me just pull up mapped here. And so here we have your mapped account, and we're going to talk about a lot of this and try to understand who you are in terms of the things that you've done in preparation for medical school. Before we do that, what I'd like for you to do before we go into any of this, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your story and, kind of give us some insight about who you are and kind of what your journey has been thus far in not, brief kind of way, but, we want to kind of begin by hearing a little bit about kind of the progress of things and where this all comes from for you.
Sure. Yeah. No, I was born in a log cabin outside Jacksonville.
Okay.
No, we won't quite back that far. When I started out college, I had no idea I wanted to be a physician. I didn't know what I wanted to be. I think like most college kids, I changed my major several times. It was aviation, and then it was religious studies, and it was a variety of things, music. So then I finally actually landed on a profession that I was exposed to through working in the hospital. So I ended up working as a hospital transporter, and that exposed me to, I worked out of radiology. I saw how the radiologists and the radio techs work, and I saw a lot of nursing. So I ended up becoming a CNA because I saw how they worked and saw how nurses worked. And I thought, hey, I kind of want to get close to that. And that led me to have a desire for nursing, which I saw as attainable because I didn't really have a high view of myself as a person. And I thought, hey, this, if some of these people can do this, I can do this too. Yeah. And so I ended up going and becoming a nurse. I got my associate's degree in nursing. I got my RN as the state license, started practicing as a nurse. And then throughout my years as a nurse, practicing on the floor and then in the ICU, those patient experiences really led me to realizing that I craved a bit more out of my understanding of the medical care we gave. And also I craved a role that was different than the one I was serving in. So I had some introspection over a couple of years. I did but some shadowing of different types of careers. I did shadowing of nurse practitioners, CRNAs, and then I talked to lots of physicians, and I came to the conclusion that the education that really suited me best for the goals that I wanted was going to be medical school. There's no substitute for it. And so I ended up talking with my wife, and she really kind of pushed me to say, hey, this is attainable. You can do this, and I'm down. So why don't we just do it? And that's really where it started a couple of years ago. And now I'm looking forward to the MCAT.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's a fantastic story. It's not necessarily an unusual one. I mean, it's not a typical one, but not rare. And in two different ways. One, in terms of your coming to medicine, to the idea of medical school from another health profession, from nursing in your case. So that's not unusual. It's also not unusual for as a post-bac student, you coming back to school and doing the school thing again, and really having a different kind of, and we'll look here in a minute at your academic record a little bit and kind of understand that a little bit better. But coming back to this as a post-bac is certainly not unusual these days. It's very a very normal kind of thing that med schools see a lot of. And so, what I would say first and foremost is congratulations on figuring it out and being willing to commit yourself to the journey. And it's great that you have the support of your family. That's a huge part of it, as I'm sure you've seen over the last several years, and just the fact that your family is very supportive is a really great thing, and I'm sure that you can, attest to how important that's been over the last couple of years. So, that's awesome.
Yeah, I couldn't have done it without a good support system, and I wouldn't have even had the esteem and self-efficacy to understand that I can actually do this. So big help.
Awesome. That's awesome. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at the GPA graph and get a little bit better idea of kind of how your academics look like, and this lays it out for us here. We see a AMCAS GPA of 3.41 and a science GPA of 3.60. Why don't you tell me a little bit about what we're seeing here in terms of your progression over time? So this starts out, I'm assuming, with back in the day when you didn't have a clue what you wanted to do, and you were kind of all over the place a little bit. But track us through what you just indicated in a general way. Track us through that now academically, what we're seeing here on this graph.
Yeah, the beginning is way back in the fall of 2009, which was it's a long time ago. But first semester, I really had no idea what I was doing. I was homeschooled the last 2 years of high school, and coming into college level courses, and I had a history course that asked me to write a 15-page paper with MLA formatting, and I was like, what is that? And I just bombed it. So the next subsequent semesters were semesters where I was just trying to figure out what I wanted to do, what made sense to me. And so there's just lots of kind of bouncing in and out of 4.0 and then a 3.4, and then just kind of of course the 2 I started out with that I mentioned before. So that all was kind of the early part of the career. And then around spring or so of the 13, it's kind of where I did a couple science courses, kind of realized, hey, I think I wanted to be involved in nursing, and anatomy and physiology were those couple of 4.0 sciences. And so I ended up, I didn't do so well in micro, hence the following semester at that science GPA, but ended up going through nursing school from 14 through 15. And nursing school is kind of notoriously difficult on your GPA. They basically scale up their their letter grades. So anything below a 93 is a B, and anything below like an 86 or something like that is a C. So that was kind of the great equalizer. I still hold a grudge for getting a B when I got a 92.935. But yeah, and so all of the remainder of my nursing courses for my associates, and then also my bachelor's, which I did after the fact, was all the way through from 14 through 18. And then where I started my medical school prerequisites was the fall of 2019, I believe. Yeah. And that was when I'd never taken Gen Chem, never taken Gen Bio, never taken physics.
Right.
And so those were all of the courses I was taking. And whenever I got into my first semester, I had Gen Chem 1, Gen Bio 1, and then the 2 labs that accompanied them. That was when I really started to see, oh man, like this really starts to make sense. And it's actually super applicable to my current career that I understand these things. So it really kind of nudged me in the right directions to say, maybe this is right for me. I'm actually liking this. So you see kind of like a general trend upward on pure science courses. It wavers a little bit, but in general, my science GPA only goes up there. And it just kind of goes to show that I really had a good time with those courses. I actually kind of enjoyed it. So
yeah, awesome. Yeah, and I think what we see here, I'm going to point out 2 things here. One is that if we looked at this graph, and for those of you who are just listening on via audio, the graph is kind of all over the place. It's certainly, as you've described, Gage, the green line there, the semester by semester. What we really see is you're kind of, particularly those first about 4 years or so, are kind of all over the map. And what I really want to point out here is that once you got to the pre-med classes, what you're looking at there is really, pretty good stuff. You're looking at 3 8s and 3 6s and 3 9s and stuff like that. So fall, 3 7 4 1, fall 3 4 3 4 1 up to 3 8 8, 3 6 3, 3 8 7 on those semesters that you've done more recently. And so what I think that says to an admissions committee is that you've sort of committed yourself now to the whole enterprise of going into medical school, and you're performing well. And that's going to be an important part of what they're going to look at. Now, what I'm going to do now is look at the detail here, because I want to point out another thing relative to what we're seeing, and that is this post-bac stuff right here. So what we're seeing here is a much higher GPA. If we looked at this class standing post-bac record, 369 we see for AMCAS, which is much different than a 341. Which is your undergraduate cum. And so what that says to me, and I'm kind of circling it here on the screen, and what that says to me, this post-bac record, is that you're really performing in the last several semesters in these pre-med classes at a 3.7 level. And that's a very important number. And what it really says, I think, to the medical schools is that you are understanding, what you're doing. You've gotten it. You've kind of gotten it as representative of knowing how to do school well. And now that you've gotten a good sense of things and what you want to really do, you've committed yourself to that and performed well in the classroom. And this will be obvious to medical schools that are looking at you, that there's a real difference between the what it used to look like, which is if we go back to the dashboard, this type of stuff. And what we're really seeing is more this type of stuff. Circling the last several semesters, that you've been involved in the actual pre-med classes. So I think that sounds really, and that's where you want to kind of hang your hat, and that's what you're going to be expecting medical schools to hang their hat on those courses. And so, now I'm assuming that you're in classes this semester.
No, actually, I finished up biochemistry and physics too, in the summer, and now I'm exclusively taking a Blueprint MCAT course.
Okay, awesome. That's awesome. So we're going to actually look at the MCAT next. So let's go down here to the bottom. Now we have 3 dates here that I see. One is August the 16th. We see a September the 21st, and we see an October the 4th. Now I'm guessing that these are practice exams. Is that correct?
Yeah, the first was a diagnostic, and then the final 2 were full-length practice.
Okay, good. So I think that's great. So what we're seeing here is I guess the diagnostic was, and we can go to the tab here and see that this is the diagnostic was a $499, and you've gone up from that to $504 and now to $505. Now your target date is January, correct?
Yes, I actually have it registered as the 21st.
21st. Okay, awesome. And so that's excellent. So that really gives you November, December, and about half of January, a little bit more than half of January, for really studying. And so you've got a good, good thing going on in terms of a commitment to a program and to a plan, a study plan, and you feel pretty good about that?
Yeah, absolutely. Blueprint has been pretty good. I feel pretty confident in the program, and then the results I've seen so far have been nothing but increases just due to their curriculum. So it's been great.
Right. Now, tell me a little bit about your target score. What do you think you're capable of? What's going to make you happy?
What would make me happy is a 511. I think that is the thing that I would be pleased to achieve. Now, my goal is a lot higher than that. I think you should kind of shoot for the stars for this. So
sure.
In my head, I'm like, I'm going to go for a 520. Of course, not everybody gets that, and I may not get that. But if I at least get that 511, which is about the average matriculant MCAT for MD schools, I'll be happy.
Yeah, good. That's good. And that's a good, reasonably good, solid score to target. I think you're right to shoot for the stars. And but if you could, be happy with a certain number, and typically what I encourage students to do is set a number that says, okay, if I get this number, I'm going to be happy enough to stick with it. And but if I get below this number, then I'm really going to consider retaking the exam. And I think what that does is it now I hear a lot of students who say, oh, if I get a 511, I'm going to be very happy. And they get a 511, they're like, I really think I can do better than that. And then they take it again anyway. Or I hear a student who will say, I set that score at a 511, and now I got a 510, and but I'm thinking I might be happy with the 510. So it's just all over the map. But I think you've got a good sound reasoning, and I like it that you've got a number in your head both to shoot for, but also a number of this is my comfort level number in terms of what I'd be happy with. So I think that's good. Keeping up with taking lots of practice tests, and both in terms of blueprint, but also the AAMC practice tests are going to be very important. You're going to get to the point where in the future where you're taking about one a week, and one of the practice tests a week. And what my real encouragement, and you probably know this already, is you really have to study the exam that you took. Where did I go wrong? Where did I go right? What do I need to learn about where I'm struggling in terms of content, but also just in terms of the types of questions and how to read questions and stuff like that. So, but Blueprint will do a good job of kind of helping you through that process, and so that's great. Let's look at your activities now. So on the dashboard, obviously, for those that are watching us, what we're seeing here is a timeline of activities. You have 16,244. Paid employment is a lot of them, and then volunteering is some as well. And we're going to kind of look at these activity by activity and get a sense of where we are. So here's the detail of that. So why don't you just walk us through what we're seeing here, Gage?
So as far as the different positions, you'll see that a lot of them are paid positions, and that it just kind of details my history of working in the medical field in various positions that we kind of talked about before.
Right.
And there's a couple of them that are related to nursing as well, but I'm not sure if I'm going to list them separately or how to list them. And those are the charge nurse and nurse preceptor. I typically will teach students and new nurses as they come on about nursing and take them through my shift. And then as the charge nurse, I'm just in charge of the unit for the day, for various things.
And I think you've got those categorized appropriately here. The charge nurse, definitely leadership experience. The nurse preceptor, definitely kind of mentoring, teaching type experience. So absolutely on those. Now, I also see, you've got lots and lots of medically related experiences, clinical experiences, both as a CNA before you became a registered nurse, and now as a paid employee. That's 10,000, a little over 10,000 hours of nursing experience, and so lots of clinical experiences here. Now, you mentioned earlier how you had done some shadowing. Or that you had. Now tell me a little bit about that, because I don't see that here.
Yeah, so I did do some direct shadowing of a CRNA and then of a nurse practitioner. I don't feel like that's relevant here. I have done some very light shadowing of a physician that it's too few numbers to really report, in my opinion. Obviously, working as I do, I work in the intensive care unit. I often work directly with physicians on patients most shifts that I'm working, but I don't think that is considered shadowing either. So I do plan to have shadowing directly of physicians in the next year. But I just don't have those yet.
Yeah. And what I would encourage you to do is, in terms of that shadowing experience that you're going to be getting over the course of the next, 8 months or so, is get out of the hospital, get into some private practice clinics. What the hospital environment is like. You understand that in a great deal of detail. And so what I think will be valuable to you, and what will, I think, mean something to the medical schools, is for you to get into settings where you're shadowing somebody not in the hospital, but in their own private practice or in a multi-practice clinical setting of some sort, and potentially with a variety of different kinds of people, different specialties. do a pediatrician, do a family practice, internal medicine specialist, whatever you can do. And these don't have to be lengthy experiences. They can be a full day experience, or they can be a half a day experience, or they can be several days, all put together or whatever. But I think just getting those kinds of experiences will be really beneficial to you. In terms of your understanding about what being a physician looks like in those settings. But I think this will reassure the medical schools that you have a breadth of understanding of what all this is about in these various settings. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. My initial thought, of course, before talking to you, was to get breadth of experience, and so I spoke to a few different physicians that have agreed to allow me to shadow them. They work in the hospital, but some of them also do clinic as well. One of them being a palliative care physician, and the other a neurosurgeon. So I figured I'd kind of spread it out a little bit. If I can get in contact with some family medicine physicians, I would love to shadow them. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I think you're doing it the right way. You've got a good sense of what needs to happen, and with the contacts that you have at the hospital, you shouldn't have any problems. Finding those activities and stuff like that. Now, I notice also here that you've got quite a bit of volunteer experience, and this is through your church, and that is totally appropriate. What I'd like to see also is some additional volunteer opportunities that you can that are community based. They don't have to be medically related, although they could be. But they what I would say is getting involved in your community. Now, what you've shown here is that you're involved in your church community. What I'd like to see is broadening that to the general community around you, your little town or city or whatever, and just kind of whether that means, the local homeless shelter, or, reading to kids, or, helping new immigrants learn to speak English, or, there's just a huge variety of things that you could do. But I think what this says to the medical schools is it really opens up the opportunity for you to be able to say, I'm committed to my community, both in a specific way through my church community, but also in a broader socially active way in the broader community around me. And so does that make sense? Is that something that you've thought about?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's kind of one of those things where I realized I hadn't been doing it before I'd wanted to go to medical school. So of course, I didn't have any real hours there because I wasn't thinking about it. But then going through the journey, the post-bac journey, I really didn't have time working full time as a nurse, and then also going to school. Now, the lovely thing is once the MCAT is over, I will have more than an abundance of free time, which I plan on filling with shadowing and volunteering. And I'd consider doing some community work as well. Right now, I'm just trying to figure out exactly what that would look like. But
yeah, absolutely. And I think that you've got plenty of time, but my encouragement to you here would be, if you can help it, don't wait until after the MCAT to get involved in those things. Go ahead and start doing that now, even if it's just a little bit, because then you can say, I started this in, let's say November, and I've continued to do this, whatever it is. I've continued to do this over the course of the last 8 months or whatever, because you don't want to wait too long, because then it can begin to look like you're just checking a box. And so I'd encourage you to kind of see, if there are opportunities for you to get involved, knowing that you're working full time as well as going, studying for the MCAT and stuff like that. Your time is limited. needed. And, you've got family obligations, etc. So there's a lot going on in your life. And I get that. But even, like I said, even if it's just a little bit here or there, a little dab, here, a little dab there, at least it says to the medical schools, you've got this idea and an understanding of the importance of pouring yourself into the community around you.
Mhm.
Does
Yeah,
that make sense?
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, 100%. I definitely don't want to appear like I'm checking boxes. So
Yeah, and I don't think you are. I don't think that's your mentality, and I think that's going to be clear in your application. But you don't even want to sort of give a hint of that. And so I think the earlier you can get involved in some stuff, I think the better off that you'll be. Now, I'd like for us to look at the medical schools that you're thinking about applying to. So this is what I guessed, that you're going to apply pretty much everywhere in Florida.
Yep.
And I see DO schools as well as MD schools here.
Mm-hmm.
And so that makes sense to me. So you would go wherever you got in, I'm assuming.
Absolutely.
Yeah, right.
Oh, I'm not a guy who's, cherry picking my choices here. I'm definitely going to go where I'm allowed.
Right.
And I plan on applying to more than what's on that list, but I'd like to actually do some research to make sure that whatever school that I'd apply to, I'd actually be a good fit and have a reason for wanting to go, other than just, it matches my stats, which makes no sense.
Yeah,
so.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I mean, I think you're on the right track. Obviously, there's quite a few medical schools in Florida. I know you've got one, the one that's in Georgia is on here also. I forget what.
The PCOM, yeah.
PCOM, right? The Georgia campus of PCOM, and so I think you're looking at it the right way. I definitely would encourage you to look at some additional schools outside of Florida that kind of pique your interest, but you've got plenty of time to do that. The nice thing about obviously mapped is that it gives you the ability to kind of keep those in a place and know some things about each of these schools as you go along and be able to flag them. These are the ones I'm interested in, etc. So that's good. And so I think you're definitely on the right track with that, for sure. So yeah. And what I would say here, I mean, when we get really down to sort of the crux of the matter, is that I definitely think that you've got the MCAT yet to do. We talked about the shadowing, and we talked about broadening your volunteer experiences. But I definitely think that from what I've seen in the picture that you're presenting here, Gage, is that I think you're going to be ready to apply next year. And so, the real question of am I ready is that I think by next May, June, you're going to be ready. And, assuming that that you're committed, that you retain a commitment to studying for the MCAT and doing well on the MCAT, that obviously you've got the plan, and you're just going to work the plan, and then you've got a good sense of what you need to do in terms of clinical experiences and stuff. I mean, you're going to continue working, and that's giving you lots of clinical experiences, and then you're going to do some shadowing and stuff. And but I think in terms of what I see here, you've got a green light. I mean, this is really this is the good stuff. I mean, I think you've done the right things that you needed to do. You've shown that you can do well in the classroom. You've shown that you are committed to this whole endeavor of going into medical school. And so my encouragement to you is just keep it up. just keep doing what you're doing and work hard, and by next May you're going to be ready to go. You'll have some work to do next spring in terms of beginning to get the application materials ready, writing your personal statement, and that kind of stuff. But that's the easy stuff. When biochemistry is the hard part.
Yeah. No, I've already gotten a plan in place, and my plan is to read this book.
Yes, absolutely.
That's a product placement for you right there.
Yeah, right. And I'll do a little bit more product placement for you as well. There's one here on the personal statement that I don't know if you have this one yet or not, but in writing your personal statement, this book can be very, very helpful. And then sometime next summer into the fall, you're going to want the medical school interview book. No, I mean, I think you're doing all the right stuff, Gage. And what I would say is really best wishes to you, and keep up the good work. And but I definitely think I don't see any reason why you would need or want to delay. I mean, I think you're going to be good to go by next May.
That sounds great. I think you're pushing for me to do some community volunteer work. I think is well placed and definitely well received. I definitely wasn't sure about how to go about that and when to go about that and how that would appear. So I think I'm definitely going to take your advice and try to find a way to go about doing that, and just kind of proceed as going forward, just based off of your positive feedback.
Yeah. And I think what I recommend with that kind of stuff is let your own interests direct you in that. If you have an interest in a particular area or something that really, jumps out at you, whether it's, I mean, I'm sure in Jacksonville, there's an enormous homeless population like there is in most big cities. If that's what rings your bell, or if, working with the elderly is really what does it for you, or our kids, or, let your own interests direct you in that regard. And it's like I said, these volunteer opportunities, they don't have to be medically related at all. They can be, whatever. But I think it's just the effort to, it's the evidence of altruism is when you get involved in the community and you do it over a consistent period of time, and you're really showing that this is more than just, I want to get in medical school, so I'm going to check this box, but it really is deeply ingrained in who you are. And this is where reflection becomes very important. And what MAPT allows you to do is really reflect on these experiences and kind of journal within the context of the MAPT app, and really understanding what am I learning out of these experiences? What is this doing to me? How am I gaining through these experiences, gaining wisdom and understanding and perspective on what it means to be a volunteer, what it means to be altruistic, what it means to help other people without really any benefit, that you're getting in and of yourself. And so that's great. And I think you'll certainly, being in an area like Jacksonville, be able to do that really without any problem. So
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, do you have any last questions or concerns or anything that you've been wondering about?
Really, you kind of clarified it with those kind of variables of shadowing and community service.
Yeah.
I think I didn't really have much of a question regarding medical experience, and you also answered my question about the activity listing that I didn't even ask, but you stated it already. So it all feels much more crystal clear to me. So good. I think I'm feeling good about it.
Well, good. Well, you should, I think. I mean, I definitely think you'll be a candidate that will be attractive to medical schools, and so I'm best wishes to you in this whole process, and we're certainly here and around. If you'll keep in touch with us and let us know how things are going, it'd be great.
Absolutely. Maybe you'll see me on a episode of Mission Accepted.
Yeah, there you go. That'd be awesome, right? That would be awesome. Well, thanks again, Gage, for all your hard work and for being with us on Am I Ready today? And good luck in the process.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wright. I appreciate it.